Welcome to the Roy Branson Legacy Sabbath School, and I guess I'm doing everything this morning. So I should have a pretty good introduction of myself, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, we do have an announcement. I'm going to have, you want to make that announcement?
Sure. For those of us that just came from the first service, we'd like, and you didn't go, we'd like to encourage you to go to the second. The homily and the music is awesome.
And they have the big bottles of grape juice? And,
Yes.
Okay.
The music was big.
Yes.
Church was very good, so if you
And
wanted
the
to
side,
go to the second service.
I do see one lady properly dressed with an Easter bonnet. I've struggled with my wife for years, but anyway. And by the way, we have some lilacs from our yard.
Where's your yard?
Where's our yard senior Kaipa? And I have a Great Dane that watches.
Very good.
Well, anyway, but we're going to have a quiz question at some time during the program today, and the person that gets it gets to keep these.
Oh my goodness.
Except Peter can't be in it because it's going to be an historical question. Anyway, oh, and what my wife suggested was that we put raffle tickets out here for $1 a piece. But it was decided probably we shan't do that. So, but anyway, so, okay. Okay, we're going to talk, oh, I should have prayer first. Thank you for this day. Thank you for Easter. Thank you that we can be here. And continue to watch over us as we look at this topic today. We pray in your name. Amen. Okay, we've been going through Jack Provonsha's book, which I still find very fascinating on different topics that we don't normally discuss. And today's topic is going to be on gambling and investments. And Jack Provonsha talks about, he was asked to speak about this, or to write, I don't know if it was to speak or to write about this topic, and he said, why did they ask me to do this? Because he said there seems like there's more important things in this world than the issue of gambling. You know, he mentioned several things like equal pay scale for men and women, different things like that. So, but anyway, so he started to, I guess the reason that the interest came up was somebody had played the lottery, and guess what happened? They won. And they didn't know what they should do with the money. And I mean, or at least not the people that won the money. They were trying to help the other person to know what to do with the money. And they were wondering if they did it for the church gymnasium, was that okay? Oh, by the way, if anybody buys a lottery ticket, we will not ask where it comes from if you give that money to the Roy Branson Legacy Sabbath. And by the way, it is a 25% tithe on that. So anyway, and so Jack asked the question, is it wrong to gamble, or is it okay to, what if the person had not won a large amount, had won $10? Was it okay then? So is there a degree, and gambling's okay, and other times it's not. My mother, bless her heart, she's been gone now, 4 years, almost 4 years. One day, she was living in an assisted living place, and they had this lunch bunch that they would go different places. And one time they went out to Morongo. And she came back and she said that was the devil's played in. She just, I mean, and she didn't gamble out there, but she said, this is just, this is terrible. But I think later that week she went down to the senior center and played bingo. So I guess it was more of a matter of where it was at rather than what. And so I was asking my wife if they actually won money there at the bingo at the Calamasa Senior Center, or did they get things like cans of food or whatever, you know. So anyway, so the question that Jack was asking is, does it make a difference? Or the other question that came up is here in our own city of Loma Linda. The city council was asked by another denomination, an Adventist church would never do this. They wanted to run a bingo, and they wanted to take the proceeds and use it for their school. I remember when I did chaplain intern work at Kettering years ago, there was a gentleman that was in the unit that I was on, and he was Roman Catholic, and he said, you know, I'm down south, I'm looking for a Roman Catholic church to go to Sunday morning, and couldn't find it, and all of a sudden I saw a bingo sign, and so he said, I knew that was a Catholic church, so he went there. So anyway, but Jack did find that there was a dearth of information on gambling, and he'd heard that Christians don't gamble, but Christians do gamble, don't they? It just depends what group. If you're Roman Catholic, they say it's 80%, Jewish 77%, Protestants do 50%. My hunch is that Protestant has a big spectrum in it. I don't think you're going to find Pentecostals doing much gambling, but maybe Presbyterians and Lutherans might do that. So, and that's no expert. I'm just saying is I think you would find a difference. And of course, Adventists would never, ever gamble. So anyway, and so Jack goes through these issues and works out almost a theological perspective on gambling, and we'll take a look at his conclusions later. We've been gambling for quite a while. Humans have. Matter of fact, they go back 40,000 years to caves in the Pleistocene period, and they find dice. And they see pictures on walls of caves that people have been gambling, at least some form of it, for years. We know that the ancient Egyptians and the Chinese had games of chance. Greek soldiers would gamble, but they were told not to, but they did anyway. We even know that in the Easter story, that the Roman soldiers did what? They gambled for Jesus' clothes. I think it was in the 17th century was the first casino. It was in Italy. I don't remember if it was Genoa or where. Gaming houses have been fairly common, and in America, gaming emporia, is it emporia? I guess maybe that's, we're all through the West. And it wasn't until the Victorian period that gaming was kind of shut down. Now, we've all watched Bonanza, we've all watched Maverick. Well, some of you younger people don't know about Maverick, but you know, Maverick always used to keep a $1,000 bill pinned to the inside of his coat, so that I don't know where he would get the cash to break it, but I think we always had that. And of course, we all know about famous stories of Wild Bill Hickok was killed in Deadwood. So that story goes. But why do we gamble? That's a question. Well, first of all, let me tell you, gambling is a trip. I remember a time that I was playing poker. Now, we didn't use rook cards. We were using real cards. And we used real money. But there's no fun playing cards if you don't have some skin in the game, right? Anyway, we used to meet on Saturday night at a friend's place, an Adventist friend of mine, and we always had Vespers, but as soon as Vespers and the sun went down, he'd break out his poker table. He even had the visor. He always had good cards, and so, anyway, we would play poker on a regular basis on Saturday night. And one night, I wasn't doing real well, and I drew to an inside straight. Now, I'm sure you folks don't know what an inside straight is. And if you do, you probably won't want to admit it. An inside straight is you have what?
I would like to know.
I had, and I don't remember exactly, I had a 3, a 4, a 6, and a 7, and a jack. So I had 2 cards and one missing in the middle, and a jack. It was no good. It was a junk hand. So we were playing a 5-card draw, and I threw in my jack, and out came the card that fit right in the middle. So I had a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Does that count up? Had that 5 cards? And the pot was big. Might have been $7. And this is back in the 60s when $7 or $10, you know, you could take your date out, you could go to the movies, you could splurge. And matter of fact, McDonald's had opened up a place in Lansing, Michigan. 15 cents you could get a hamburger. And if you really wanted to splurge, you went to A&W. And that was the days when the windows would roll down. We didn't have the skaters, but the ladies would come out and they would take your order and they'd put it on the window. It was kind of a happy days thing. You know, we had WILS there in Lansing, and this was before cell phones, obviously. And I remember people would call WILS and say, have so-and-so call so-and-so, you know. Usually some girl wanting her boyfriend. And so anyway, so you'd hear that at the A&W. So I mean, that's really splurging. You know, you went to the A&W, that was big time. And here's this pot, and I won it. By the way, there's some rules you need to learn about poker. If you're winning big, you don't leave early. And you know why, don't you? Because you got to give the other people a chance. If you're losing, you can go, nobody cares. But you don't, so anyway. And so, it's still a memory that sticks in my mind. The reason that inside straight is the chances of drawing that are 13 to 1. The chance of drawing to an outside straight is 6.5 to 1. So, and then to get the other cards. Anyway, I haven't played poker in years. The last time I played poker was when I was a senior in college, and there was a bunch of guys I didn't know. We were playing, and after about an hour and a half, 2 guys got in a fist fight over money. Can you imagine people fighting over money? And I decided I'm going to get out of here, so I picked up I was losing, but so I could go. So anyway, the thrill of victory. The thrill of victory. The agony of defeat. I was at the Ionia County Fair, bud. You know where Ionia County Fair is? Free fair. It wasn't free. You got in free, but you had to spend a bunch of money for parking and everything else in there. And I was there with a friend of mine that I had gone to started kindergarten with, so we were good friends. Anyway, I got into one of these games that if you push this ball over, or this, whatever it was, over the goal line, you won a big bunch of money. And I was getting close, I was getting close. Finally, I ran out of money. I said, Jerry, can I borrow $100 from you? Yeah. So I borrowed the $100 and I lost the $100. I found out years later, I was watching something on TV about that game, and there's no way to win that game. It's a sucker bet. And I was a sucker. Matter of fact, I was talking to Jerry yesterday. He gave me a call in the afternoon, and he reminded me about that. And I said, you know, that was the biggest inoculation that I ever learned about gambling. He said, yeah, I learned from that too. So I said, well, would you like to give me $50 out of that for your tuition lesson? No, he said, we don't do that anymore. So anyway, but I learned from that. By the way, speaking of poker, poker is more than just a card game. It's psychology. It's, it's the card, knowing the cards. And Nate Silver, who, he's a statistician, and he's been in several things, baseball, politics, statistics, and all that. He used to win a lot of money on video poker. He's one of these people that could memorize or knew the statistics of the chances of certain cards. So he knew when his chances were good, its odds were good. Now, I don't know about video poker, but I do know that when you're playing poker with somebody else, it's psychology, because you've got to find out if they're lying or not. Do people lie in poker? Well, they call it bluffing. They have a nice word for it. And they have tells if they're bluffing. The biggest tell that we know is a dog wagging its tail when it sees you, but I mean, obviously that's something that people don't do, but they'll have a kick in their eye, or they'll hitch. And good poker players know that. And if you've ever watched on TV at the casinos, this Texas Hold'em, which I really don't know the rules on that real well, but that's more than just chance. It's skill. And of course, the song that is mentioned, in our presentation, or in the announcement class, the gambler's advice. You got to know when to hold them and what? Know when to fold them. And there's a lot of truth in that. So anyway, poker, gambling, it's fun. It's really fun. But why do we do that? But what about the other game? Well, we'll come back to poker a little bit. But what about the lottery? Why do people play the lottery? Or another one is, why do people play slot machines? I remember when I worked for the American Bible Society, Nevada was my territory, and I'd go over there and it'd be lunchtime, and I'd find a casino for lunch. And of course, the casino, is always on the outside, right there, just as soon as you go into the doors to the left. No, wait a minute, that's Cracker Barrel. The restaurant is always through this smoke. And of course, all these svelte people there, trim, neat, sitting at the slot machines, playing slots. Anyway, the chance, each time you pull the lever, by the way, I've never put a coin in a slot machine. A friend of mine was telling me years ago, when she was, a young child, her father was taking the family through they lived in California, and they were heading to the east somewhere, and they stopped off at a gas station in Nevada, and the kids wanted to play the slot machines. And finally, who was a minister, by the way, which it doesn't make any difference, but was going to teach these kids a lesson. So he gave them a silver dollar to put in the machine. They were going to pull it and not get anything. But guess what happened? They hit the jackpot. That was a lesson, right? So anyway, but gambling. Why do people gamble? Oh, by the way, speaking of poker, the story in my wife's family, her foster father was stationed in Japan after World War II and played poker a lot, and sent his winnings back to New York State and built his house from the money of that. So I guess that was okay. He used his money wisely. So why do people gamble? Why is it wrong? Is it wrong? Well, I came across a couple articles. Oh, by the way, speaking of the lottery, I came across, here's some statistics. Your chances of being struck by lightning are 1 in 1,083,000. Killed by lightning, 1 in 13,000. Oh, here's one that's just relevant for this time. Your tax return being audited. 1 in 123. Mountain lion attack, there was another one. 1 in 32 million. So here's one, dating a supermodel. You know, I look around here and I'm looking at these guys. I think these odds are too low. But for you gals who look pretty good, it's 1 in 880,000. So, oh, and here's an odd one. Did you know that lefties are more apt to die than right-handed people? I still would like to look this one up.
More apt to die, period, or more?
Oh, no.
More apt to die, I'm sorry. I'm not
Die accidentally. Yeah, I mean, the death rate's still the same as it's always been. 1 per person.
Thank you.
It's 1 in 4.4 million. And I guess it's because most things are made for right-handers. And so every once in a while you get into left-handers. And so anyway, that's kind of an interesting one. But, oh, and a Powerball. See if I can write this. Your chances of winning Powerball how am I doing here?
Write it bigger.
Can't read it.
Can't see
Can't read it?
Darker
see it.
pen.
Huh?
Darker pen.
I have one
You need
pen.
the pen is,
Oh.
or the colors.
1, 2, 3.
How many zeros?
One more here. 1 in 88 quadrillion. To me, that's a sucker bet. So, but as I said at the beginning, if you do that and get it, we'll take it here in the class, no questions asked. So, anyway. I really think that's one of the negative things of gambling. And that is, you lose your money. Like my $100 that I lost at the Ionian Fair. And it's, as I said, I think in some ways it was meant for me to do that because at this time, even now when I go to a Rotary meeting and they have raffle tickets, I'll take them, but if I win, I always throw it back into the kitty there. Now, if it were a big amount, I don't know if I would do that. But, anyway, so...
What does Jack say? What does Jack
What does Jack say? Jack say? Well, Jack has a much more esoteric view. He looks at it theologically and philosophically, sees it part of the Protestant work ethic, the Newtonian physics, that that there's a thing called cause and effect, and gambling kind of goes against that. And he equates it to sin in general. He equates the gambler with Eve in the Garden of Eden. And so, and I'm not saying that he's wrong, I'm just not sure. I don't think people that go into Las Vegas or Reno or, well, anywhere now, think about all that. I would, somebody says to me, oh, look, I just want to go to Morongo or San Manuel just for the afternoon. I've got $100. Once I go through that, I'm gone. I'm not sure I have the big struggle with that, but the problem is that there are many people that can't just stop there. And so, but why do people gamble? Well, I'm going to read something here. I just got it this week. It's very appropriate right after tax day. It says, Catherine lived and breathed to gamble. She would go days without sleep and at times slept in her car at the gambling establishment. Nearly all the money she collected from her rentals went towards her compulsive gambling. When she ran out of money, she borrowed from friends and didn't pay them back. By the way, I did pay my friend back. I confirmed it with him again yesterday. She took cash and credit cards from her husband's wallet and took distributions from retirement accounts. Her circumstances were so dire that she stopped paying her mortgages, property taxes, maintenance expenses, and credit card bills. She received tax sale notices for her rental properties due to unpaid property taxes. Her son learned of her dire financial condition in June of 2013. He researched the drug pramipexole, am I pronounced? And learned that one of the side effects was compulsive behavior, which he believes led to his mom's compulsive gambling during this time. After learning this, Catherine and her doctor started reducing the dosage in 2013 to get her off the medication. Even through the reduction of the medication, Catherine continued to gamble in 2013, 2014, and 2015. Finally, she stopped taking the medication in 2015, and at that time, she stopped gambling. But that time, she owed the government $75,000, actually almost $76,000. But here's a case that I think is more common than we like to realize, that there's medical issues in regard. Here is a paper, How Central is Dopamine to Pathological Gambling or Gambling Disorder? And then The Ultimate Guide to Gambling Addiction. And I have one other one. What motivates gambling behavior? Insights into dopamine's role. So there's something that in a compulsive gambler that is messed up. So, what's wrong with gambling? I think it cannot be controlled. If you have one of these issues, then you should probably stay away from it. I think there's some other issues, and that is, I alluded to it, and that is the games are set against you. If you go in with the idea that you're going to make a killing, if you're going to be Bond, James Bond, and win at the... Bond didn't play roulette, he played shindig for... Always carried his PPK, Walter, with him, but if you're going in to think you're going to win against the house, forget it. It's set against you. Somebody might come out, win big, and of course they're going to splash that all through the newspaper. But you need to understand that gambling casinos are not eleemosynary organizations. They're there to make money, big money, and they do. Another part of it is that there's a lot of mafia in gambling. When gambling was in Nevada, it was big time. Finally, they were chased out and they went to Atlantic City. And they started to be involved with the gambling. You know, if a gambling place cannot make money, there's something wrong with the ownership. I mean, it's set against you. So I would say, no.
Even if it wasn't set against you, even a blackjack game that I like, because you can...
We have money you want to put in.
Because, you know, if you count cards, if you're able to do it, but there's still, it seems to me, you're not getting yet to the part of the question that you asked, which is why do people play Monopoly and get so excited when you get all those really expensive hotels and everybody else has to give you money, paper money that's worth nothing. There's some other psychological essential need or desire
Well,
that gaming of any kind, whether there's money or whether it's penny poker or
And I have to,
thousands of dollars.
I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure that
Is that feeding some?
well, Jack would say yes. Jack would say yes.
I mean, it seems to me like it must feed some, I don't know, where is a theologian here? Just tell us. What is it, David? That,
Well, a theological answer contributes something, but there are a lot of neurological answers. If one looks on the internet, there's a lot about neurological vulnerabilities. So that's, but Jack's point is that gambling is a way to try to evade the linkage between cause and effect.
Yes.
In that God has set up these orderly patterns, and gambling is a way of trying to escape these orderly patterns, and in that sense it is like what Eve has done. Now, he does begin by saying, I really think this is not that important an issue, and that there are many other issues that we should be more concerned about than this. And he really struggles, I think, to make a case against it.
Yes.
But that's his point, that it's so the world is set up in an orderly pattern of cause and effect, and gambling is a way of trying to cheat that, trying to escape it.
Yeah. And we'll get, I want to get your question. Just let me kind of pull in here, because I have to get into investments before I, so. Gambling and investing are two different things in my estimation. I think the little movie that David put on about gambling was the odds are against you. Investing, you work it so that the odds are in your favor. Now, if you really want to get the expert, as Eddie back here, he'll give you 25% and no risk at all, right? Yeah, laughing.
I wish that was true, Bob.
What?
I wish that was true.
That's true, but probably everybody would be doing it then. I'm on the investment committee for the conference, and we do well, but we have standards. So anyway, I don't want to get into that. But investing is not the same. It's a lot of strategy. I say strategy, a lot of calculations involved, and we deal with a large investment company out of Philadelphia. And so, now again, you got to understand risk is not, there's no such thing as no risk. You can put your money under a mattress and you've got risk, and that's purchasing power risk. Or you have market risk. So you have to work these things. So there's no such thing as no risk at all. Now, when does it become gambling? And in that little blurb that David sent out, I thought it was very good. It's like penny stocks or something like that. So anyway, I think, but I just wanted to say, I don't think investing can be equated with gambling. Now, there are people that are investing that do gamble, but that's not the way that most people do it. An issue of ethical investing, we deal with this all the time here in the conference and the general in the North American division. And I'm not sure where all that falls out. We disagree at Southern New England that's where I was for years. Southeastern California Conference from North American Division, for instance. We don't have trouble with Nestle's stock. The General Conference does. And you ask why? And that's because overseas, Nestle's is involved with coffee. But we don't invest in munitions. General Conference does. So I said at a meeting one time, so I can't give somebody a cup of coffee, but I can drop a bomb on them. And the other one was about investing in sin stocks. Well, I said, what about Safeway? The last time I went into a grocery store, there's a whole section on liquor, tobacco, meat, coffee. Sugar? Well, yeah, that's okay though. Oh, by the way, in Texas, Adventists can't invest in Coca-Cola, but they can in Dr. Pepper. So
That's right.
anyway, okay. So I think there's this issue of ethical, and I'm not sure where it goes. I could not go out and invest directly into a liquor store. But if I own a mutual fund that has a certain amount of Seagrams in it, I'm probably not going to say anything because I don't have any control over it. And the General Conference has like a 5% rule, and I'm not sure how that's always calculated. Like I said, I'm sure Safeway Foods is more than 5% in sin stock or in sin products. So anyway, there was something else I was going to say before we open up for questions. Anyway, so I do think, we try to do that, and so we're not always successful. We have our differences. Some people don't want to invest in Disney. Why? Do you not want to invest in Disney? What? Well, two reasons that I know of. One is they do a lot of the supernatural in their movies. Secondly is child labor in Central America. And so you've got to be, I don't know how far you want to push this. I sat on a large credit union board in Massachusetts, a community chartered credit union, which we could do things that state chartered or that federally chartered couldn't do. If you go down and you buy a CD at a bank or a credit union, do you know where that money goes? You don't know. It could go in the liquor store, it could go here, there, and then you just get your money back. You don't ask questions. So I think as a practical matter, CDs are no different than equities. So anyway, I am going to stop. I guess there's just one thing, is horses. They take a lot off the top. 300 horses die a year here in California. What is it? What's the name of the track? Yeah, Santa Anita. They've lost, 24, 25 horses this year. And this idea that a horse is going to recover from a broken leg is baloney. These thoroughbreds, they're bred for this. They're big-bodied animals with spindly legs. Maybe a quarter horse could survive that, but thoroughbreds. And that's probably one of the bad things about horse racing. And that's another thing I would say, reason not to be involved. It's the seedy side. There's broke people, horses are treated poorly. I think some of that I could not conscientiously do that. One thing we did go to, not Santa Anita, but Del Mar. A friend of mine had horses. His son had horses. We went down there, and my brother-in-law, Barb's brother, was with it, who was a conference president back east, and his secretary called him on the cell phone. And just about that time, as he's talking to her, the bugle goes off. And she says, "Oh, are you at the baseball game?" "Yeah, baseball." "I'm at the baseball game." So anyway, but it was an interesting one. Okay. Gambling, Jack says it's cause and effect. I'm not sure. What about quantum mechanics? It's not all Newtonian. So anyway, David.
I'm going to try an idea. Suppose we had one continuum that is from low risk to high risk, okay? And then we have that's a horizontal line. And suppose we have a vertical line from low addiction vulnerability to high addiction vulnerability. So we have 4 squares. Up in the left-hand corner, we would have low risk, low potential for addiction. On the lower right-hand corner, we would have high risk, high potential for addiction. And that gives us some way, I think, to look at this without saying yes or no, but saying more or less in each of the directions. I think those are the 2 variables: addiction and loss, chances of loss.
Yeah. Well, again, I think, David, if you just see it as recreational activity, you go down, you go down to the ballpark, these days to Dodger Stadium or Angel Stadium, if you take a couple kids with you and you park and you have a couple veggie dogs and stuff like that, so you're talking $300 for an evening. So why couldn't you spend $300 at San Manuel? So I don't know. I ask that rhetorically. I'm not sure Jack makes a strong case, although it's something to consider. I wouldn't just toss it out. So okay, but all right. The quiz time. I don't know. These are from my garden, David. We're gonna. If somebody gets the right answer, they get to take these home. Except Peter can't get involved with this. Well, I had thought about, again, or my wife had thought about, putting raffle ticket, but I just... Anyway, okay, my question to you is, when was it decided the date of Easter in the Christian church? Up until this, before this time, they followed the Passover, but in a certain year.
Google, right?
Huh? You can't Google or ask Peter. Same thing,
Answer it.
325 AD.
At the, what, Council of,
Nicaea.
okay, well, you have to follow.
Oh, wow.
But you knew that.
I don't need to know where your garden is anymore.
Okay.
I would like to say something, though.
Oh, yeah, is there someone who can take this, David?
You have just persuaded me how lucky I am with your lecture. Gambling is for people who have no challenges. Just studying scripture is enough challenge for me. Investment is, and I don't have, okay, for more challenges. Investment is for people who have money. I don't have that either. So I'm a very lucky man. I don't have to worry about any of it.
Well, the issue with investments now is we have 401ks, we have, I have a microphone, the 403Bs, you got retirement accounts, so you have to find out some place to put those monies, and so that's investing, so anyway.
Thank you. I think gambling is gambling, whether you invest money or if you buy a lot, because you put it in something and expecting a little more. Because in stocks you have market risk, you have industry risk, you have a litany of risks. But as you said, you make informed decision and what have you. But there are things you cannot control. You cannot control the economy. If there's an inflation, you lose everything. And it has to do with how much money you have. So buying stocks looks, because mostly the elite are able to do it, so it's okay. But if I weigh the opportunity risk of, if I have $4 that I can spend, I've paid all my bills, and I weigh the opportunity risk of not purchasing a veggie burger and buying 2 lotto tickets, I think it's fine. Because if I do win, hooray. If I don't lose that much. So I do that occasionally.
Okay. This is confession time.
Yeah, I don't think this is on. Now is it on? No. Now is it on?
There should be a green light on that.
The red light. Okay. Anyway, first of all, thank you, Forrest, but for a very interesting view into the habits of Adventist clergy. I was
Before I was a clergyman.
I'm a little worried about your addiction to poker and then your presence on all of these committees.
I haven't played poker in over 50 years. You just joined me.
Yeah, sure. And I just wanted to recount an incident. I don't know if
one who's here now was here, but I had a party once, a Boxing Day party, and a lot of my theologian friends were there, people from the religion faculty of La Sierra and Loma Linda, because that was a circle of friends. And in a Boxing Day party, remember, you bring some gift. And just for fun, I bought a pair of lottery tickets and put those in. And I have never seen people exchange almost anything for those lottery tickets. and I won't start naming names because most of them are my friends. But and I want to keep them as friends. But there is a desire, a sort of thrill that comes with winning, with taking a risk, even a small risk or a big risk. And I don't know why that instinct or that dopamine level is varied from person to person, but it certainly is there. And unless it leads to one of these bad outcomes, the excess, which almost anything we do can be done to excess and therefore be harmful, I'm not sure there's a moral issue at the heart.
I have to agree with you. Again, I think what I was trying to there's probably other issues than just the gambling itself, and that is the mafia with the gaming houses and stuff like that.
These are peripheral.
Yeah, but you add all that together, just...
I do think one can be too risk aversive. When we first started the Center for Christian Bioethics, as a director, I refused to have money invested in anything but the credit union. And I said to the other members of the board, we just cannot risk the contributions people make. And finally they said, Dave, we will invest it, and if we lose money, we'll put up the difference. And it worked out. So I was too cautious. Here we go to Ron.
I want to argue that gambling is a very serious moral issue. First of all, it tempts me to compromise my rationality by saying I'm only spending this $20, so I have 2 days of imagining what I would do with $5 billion. Or I'm only spending this $20 because it helps education in California. Now, but let's think about it. First of all, I've made a couple of irrational choices. Secondly, I have spent $20 that I could use to some more beneficial, it's a matter of stewardship. I've also symbolically supported gambling, which I think is socially and politically bankrupt as far as ethics is concerned. First of all, the lottery preys on the poorest population, and people who are desperate are more likely to say, what's the difference? I'm going to lose everything anyway, let me risk it. So we're taking money from people who can't afford it. Now, that's a social issue.
By the way, can I just comment on that? Is that they did some studies in Boston, and they found that they spend more money advertising in the poor sections than they do in the wealthy sections of the greater Boston area. So your point's well taken.
Now, let's get to the political issue and why states and politicians support gambling. They say, well, we're going to use the money to improve education. No. There are politicians who believe that the more educated, and it's true, that the more educated people are, the less likely those people are to vote for the party of that particular politician. So those politicians say, oh yeah, we've got all this money from gambling, now we can cut the education budget. We don't have to use other funds, and so education ends up not improving very much at all. So that's bad political ethics. So, you know, I tend to be a raving liberal on most issues, but here I found one I can be conservative.
Well, thank you for sharing it, because I think those are some very real issues. You know, anyway, I appreciate you saying, because I don't know. Yeah.
Well, just to footnote what Ron said, I remember hearing years ago that I think it was Texas was thinking of eliminating the lottery because the people that it was taking money from were the poor people. Those who could least afford it were spending the most money. And those who could afford it were smart enough not to. So I think desperation leads people to take that opportunity. Something else, this is just incidental, but years ago I was talking with a friend and the subject of retirement came up and he said, "I'll never be able to retire." I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, we had a good friend. He was I don't want to tell the profession he was in because I'm afraid it'll be subject to generalization, but a good friend of his who assured him that if he cashed out the mortgage in his house, that this friend could invest it and he'd be much better off." And so he did that and gave the money to his friend, not knowing that he had a compulsive gambling problem, and came to Las Vegas and lost the money along with the money of other friends. So I think you're taking a tremendous risk if you don't know just where your money's going and who's using it.
And you know, I don't know if it's the same individual that you're talking about.
The friend had to spend time in jail, by the way.
I think I know who you're talking about.
All right. Loma back east?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the point is, this individual was an adopted child, and they found a sibling, a blood sibling, who had the same addictive behavior. And so, but thank you for, oh, Eddie, wait a minute. Oh, let me get down here and then I gotta get Eddie. Do you have money?
Of course. Are you ready for a pot? Well, thank you, Forrest, for sharing with us your gambling experience. And
my inoculation.
What I got from it is that it's okay when you are winning a big pot, but it's bad when you lose money. Well, on a more serious note, what I got from this chapter, an interesting thing that I didn't know, was that it's bad to buy a lottery ticket, but it's good to invest, to buy stocks. And the point that Dr. Provonsha is making is that involves calculation. Is not only luck, but you can calculate how to use your money. Now, on a deeper level, why we are doing that, or we have this drive to do this? Well, I'm looking at the purpose of how different great men in the history of mankind saw the purpose of being born, why we are born, for what reason. And I'm thinking of Socrates that said that the man is born to be happy. In other words, whatever is making him happy, that's the purpose of life. And Aristotle, on the other side, he believed that the man is born to think and to act. Well, now acting is important, and taking the right decision is important. What the greatest danger for gambling is, in my view, addiction. It's addicted. And you gave an example, is that woman that lost everything. She couldn't control herself. And it's like alcohol or smoking and other things that it's making us addicted.
Okay, back here, give it to Eddie there.
Forrest, I think, let's see, is this on? Yeah. I think one really has to look at the definition of it. There are many folks that will not darken the doorways of Caesar's palace, but with their investment methodology, they are gamblers. And I've seen it over the years, because I told one individual, I said, you invest your money with less care than I would playing Monopoly. And it's true, because they go on forever and ever. I mean, not to name names, companies, or anything of that sort, but I saw $5 million raised right here within the Loma Linda community in 1 week to fund a cure for cancer. And if you really study the whole thing, it's a long, long shot. You'll probably be better off in the slot machines than with that deal, but they're still pending on that. But having said that, I had a very good theological friend of mine many, many years ago who has since passed, and he told me, he says, the devil will never tempt you by coming to you in the form of your dead grandmother. It will be too obvious. He said the devil will tempt you in other ways. And I think basically, that's basically what happens. So you don't have to go to Caesar's Palace to gamble. You don't have to go out here to San Miguel out there. You could be gambling in many, many other things. You could be gambling in life, and practically in all other things. I mean, it was an interesting incident, and I'll close with this. I was on a cruise ship in the Mediterranean a couple of years ago, and during the lull moments, I was in the library, so I picked up Forbes magazine, and I was reading through it. And it was an interesting incident there. This was a tax court case in which this lady, who was married to a Loma Linda graduate who I knew, and she was before the tax court judge because she had lost $1.5 million that year and had gained 1.1 million, and she was trying to convince the judge that she was a professional so that she could deduct her losses. And you are allowed to deduct your losses, you know, but only against your winnings, you see. But well, she reversed it. She really lost more than what she gained. And the tax court judge said to her in this article, and you know, names were named and all of that, that he says, you have convinced me that you are indeed a professional, so I'm going to allow you to write off of your losses. But may I respectfully ask and admonish you to change your profession.
Okay, no, right here.
I'm surprised, no, you know, when someone was speaking about stewardship, they didn't bring in the idea of time. I think that gambling is probably the biggest sump of time. And I think of all the things we're going to probably be responsible in the final judgment is how do we use our time? And I think I used to play Monopoly. I mean, we used to play when I was a kid. I mean, we'd spend whole afternoons, and if we could spend more time, we'd spend even more time playing that game. So, and I think it's really, gambling just doesn't really prove anything at the end of it. I mean, you gamble, and at the end, you may have more, you may have less, but you certainly have used a lot of time. Now, with all this negative thing, I should tell you about one positive experience I had with gambling. When I was a kid, my parents and some other people who were non-Adventists went up to Lake Tahoe. We lived in San Francisco, went to Lake Tahoe. It was the first time I was young, and I shouldn't have been in the casino probably, but and I wasn't initially playing the slot machines, but I was a collector when I was young, and it was right at the transition time when Buffalo nickels were getting scarce, and I had a few Buffalo nickels, but suddenly there was this whole plethora of Buffalo nickels, and so I would stand by my non-Adventist friends, and as they won whatever they were winning, I would say, please let me look at the nickels, and I was collecting nickels. And I knew the dates that I wanted, and so I would collect them, and I still have nickels from that particular instance at home in my nickel collection, Buffalo nickel collection. So I had quite a positive experience on other people's expense that one afternoon.
So when you sell that, will you give them part of the proceeds? Anyway, we're out of time. David, what happens next week?
Laura Elkhoon will be up to bat.
Great, well, and again, your commercial?
Yeah.
The church?
Service is phenomenal.
Pardon?
The church.
The
music.
The service. The Easter service.
Okay. Okay, now, do you have your benediction? The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.